Garrick tries to steal a runabout. Dax threatens to lose Worf's Klingon operas. And between the Klingon War and the Borg attack, Starfleet is spread pretty thin. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Deep Space Nine's Season 5, Episode 14, In Purgatory's Shadow. Written by our good friends, superstars Ira Stephen Bear and Robert Hewitt Wolf. Directed by, don't know who this is, but an interesting name, Gabrielle Beaumont, which is good to know. I believe this was February 10th, 1997. A rare female director, which is awesome to see. How are you today?
Yeah, it is awesome to see, alongside with Kim Friedman, who was a guest on our show and holds it down. I'm looking up Gabrielle Beaumont because I'm interested to see her. I obviously wasn't in this episode, but just to put a face on the name. But yeah, I'm doing good. How you doing?
Doing very well. Thank you very much. And everybody at home, thank you all for joining us today. Sit back, relax. It is fun time. It's your favorite time of the week. Unless you're one of those people that's like, yay, Friday, I'm off work. Then it's your second favorite time of the week. And we are glad you could join us. If you'd like to support us, please go to patreon.com/the seventh rule. Feel free to like us and follow us on social media. And please be sure to like and subscribe on these videos and this channel. Give us a 5-star rating. These are the best ways to support this content and to keep the show going so that we can continue having fun with you. And I think I've stalled long enough for Cirroc to have some answers.
Yes, well, she actually comes from England's part of the world. She's listed here as a British film director. No, but a British film. I said that part.
Roundabout. Got it.
Roundabout. But yeah, and it looks like I know her. Like I've seen her before. She just has this face that looks just like, I'm trying to see if it was another episode maybe that I was in, but she only did this one episode of Deep Space Nine. She just has a very familiar face.
However, she has 7 episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, including one of my all-time favorites, Lower Decks. She directed Lower Decks.
Oh, wow.
She also directed Face of the Enemy, Imaginary Friend. I don't believe that's one of my favorites, if it's the one I'm thinking of. Disaster, Suddenly Human, The High Ground, and Booby Trap. And she has directed one episode of Star Trek Voyager, Blink of an Eye, in 2000. But yeah, just the one Deep Space Nine episode.
Yeah, but fantastic job, I think, in this episode. I love this episode. I mean, there were so many aspects of it that I thought were fantastic. And starting with just the premise that Ira and Robert came up with for this show, it just left me really, it was compelling. It kind of left me on the edge of my seat trying to figure out what's going to happen next. And they just kept throwing more. It could have been like 10 episodes, really.
Yeah.
Because it was like that much stuff thrown into it. And then I thought, why is this episode so good? Why is it a to be continued episode? Because, and then I looked, it says episode 14. So this is right through the mid-season point. This is when the writers, like Ira was telling us, are trying to get their ratings, hit the second half of the season and get the ratings up. So they deliver big bombshells around the 13, 14 episode midpoint, right?
Yeah, it really is a big episode. I mean, the budget didn't seem too terribly high, other than building a new set for the, internment camps or whatever it was, a detainment camp or something. But clearly, the second episode of this two-parter is probably going to be bigger budget. I mean, we see all these ships flying at the end, battle station. Yeah. I mean, this is basically that very last 10 seconds is kind of the moment we've been waiting for like 3 or 4 seasons, where the Dominion is officially showing up. They are coming in, And it's the moment that, the people at Deep Space Nine have feared, and it's the moment that the fans have been waiting for, But beyond that, I thought, like, the big scale of the writing, the fact that it's so big scale and there's all these twists and turns and, huge implications. What I found to be the coolest part, almost as usual, was the dialogue. There were so many really good, fun, powerful lines in there. There was humor. There was subtlety. That I really liked all the lines.
Yeah, right away I can tell you that in my notes I wrote down movie quality episode.
Yeah.
And this felt like a movie almost, right? There was so many developments, so many intricacies, but it was just movie quality in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
The story was so grand, it was so much going on. The moment of anticipation that we had all been waiting for, which is like, where the hell is the Dominion? Where are the Jemadar?
Right.
What are they taking them so long? What's their plans? All of that is getting scratched on the surface.
You know what Rom would call this episode? Movie quality. Anyway.
Oh God.
I'm sorry I interrupted you for that. That's my fault.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be better than that. I really did.
You did. Wow. Thank you.
I was giving you way too much credit. Yeah. But no, I have to agree with you as far as writing down the dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you find yourself writing down exactly what the script says, that's when this is some good stuff here, because I have to write this. Like, this is so good. I have to write this down. Mm-hmm. We did it with the ship porn kind of talk that they were doing in the last episode.
Yeah.
And the bow and this and that, and turn the thrusters and release docking clamps, all of that stuff that I actually wrote down because it was so intricate. It was just so good. It was captivating once again. And so as I was watching this episode, I'm writing down episodes, writing down the dialogue, writing down words. I thought Worf had some hilarious moments in this.
Yeah.
When with the Klingon opera and Dax, there were just moments. This is the way he says things, right? Mm-hmm. You have a tendency to misplace things.
Yeah.
He was the way he pouts is so good, right? It's like,
yes. I mean, that's the thing. We can all admit it at this point. Worf is a powder. He's a powder. He's a little fussy. Yes. Most Klingons are like, they're big and they're excited and they're almost jovial. They're raucous. Worf is always like, he's mopey. He's like,
he's really,
you do not understand me. I'm different.
Yeah.
He's totally goth, man.
He's he's very sensitive. So you got to be careful with Worf because he gets really sensitive.
The emo Klingon, yeah.
So she jumps on that, right? She plays to that by, taking his most valuable possession, my Klingon operas. It's just like,
yeah.
He's so possessive. He's like the kid that takes his ball away when
when he doesn't get his way. It's like, well, I'm taking my ball and going home.
Well, the ball is mine. So he's just takes the ball away. So yeah, he's just really he's hilarious in this episode. I was excited because in the beginning I wrote down, Garak and Bashir are going on an adventure because it looked like they were setting them up. Bashir's on the ship already. It looked like they were setting it up for that. Mm-hmm. And I was excited. I was like, okay, here we go. This is going to be a great Bashir Garak episode. They're going to build their whole friendship. We're going to hear the back and forth between the two of them. I was ready for it. And then again, it hits me right away with a twist, right? Bashir's like, we're going back to Sisko's office. We can talk about it there. So boom, I got a twist off the bat, right?
Right.
And then it just kept, there were one twist after the other. What is this coded message? Oh, it's nothing, but then it really is something. And then the twist I just mentioned, and just kept coming twist after twist. And then when you finally got into the changeling thing, I was like, yo, this episode is like a movie.
This episode is fire, man.
This is fire right here. It's a great episode. So yeah, I liked everything about this episode.
Right. Even all three characters that were brought in at the, in the prison colony, were all twists, were all twist reveals. Like when we find out it's Tane, right? When Garrick, admits that's a twist. Then we see Martok and we're like, whoa, we thought Martok was dead. And there's a twist. And he's missing an eye, which is cool because all the fans always remember him as missing an eye, but this is where it happens. And then if it's even possible to have a bigger twist than all the preceding twists, we see Julian Bashir there and we're like, what?
I thought he was on the station. Did he hide it? That's what I'm thinking. Did he hide on the ship with them? Was he a stowaway and they didn't know he was in the back?
Right.
No, it's not. It wasn't even him at all. That was like another great twist.
Here's some interesting stuff with that. Now, our good friend and associate producer Marie Segal messaged us to reiterate, because this was a question that we had previously. I kind of danced around it because I didn't want to give any spoilers on it. But when did Sid know that this was going to be what happens with this character? Like, did they tell him a month ago so that he played Bashir differently? And supposedly the answer is, and this is why we'd love to have Ira or Robert on, supposedly the answer is he did not know until he saw the script. So they didn't, apparently didn't want him to play it any differently. Just be yourself, be the same, and then drop it here. And then once this happens and he's bringing them sandwiches, you do see a subtle change. He's like, I thought I'd bring you some sandwiches. It's almost like he's giving a wink to the camera, to us secretly. He's like, I'm going to give you guys some sandwiches. And they're like, that's so nice. And we're thinking he's acting differently. But would we have noticed it if we didn't have that previous scene? Probably not, right?
Probably not, right. And it also made me think about how many episodes prior to this that we watched was he the fake Bashir.
Right. And that was the other thing that Anne-Marie helped us out with, because this is something that we don't really know for sure. But one thing to notice is, if you'll look at the hair. No, look at the uniform. He's wearing the uniform that they changed like 4 episodes ago. Remember, they had the blue on top and now they're in the gray. And he's wearing a uniform that's been obsolete, that hasn't been used in about 4 episodes. So we know it's been at least 4 episodes ago, at least a month or more.
And this is where the writers get super kudos for putting this jigsaw together in front of our face in this very clever way with the uniform. Nobody knew what the uniform change was about. It didn't have any real significant meaning, but now it gives us a time marker for this kind of event, which is why they specifically put him in that uniform, right? He says he was on a science mission in some province somewhere, and then they snatched him up, right? I think that's why I have to credit the writers. I want to take my hat off once again to Ira and Robert Wolf for just being so brilliant at their clever ways of putting stories together. They take their diversions every once in a while off of the main story of the Dominion, and they go off into these tangents about who Odo is or Kira giving birth, but they still make sense in the overall development of the show and also the development of the characters' interrelationships. So I'm very pleased by this season. I love the way they brought Noggin as an ensign onto the bridge. Yeah. So we're watching so many things kind of unfold really quickly. And now here we are dead center in the middle of an invasion of a Pearl Harbor level attack on DS9. And it's going down. So I wrote down so many positives about this episode. Also the costumes. Want to say shout out to Bob Blackmon for just putting together some really great stuff. I thought Garrick was wearing some amazing pieces. I had to
hang on, let me
little Garrick love right there.
Gorgeous.
He was wearing some sharp stuff.
And I saw you gave it an A+ next to it, right?
A+. Fashion wise. The guy's just styling. Yeah, man, this episode was just so good. It was started off on a great pace. It's one of those adventures. I I mentioned earlier that I like these adventure stories. I thought the Eddington story is kind of like an adventure story. It's um, it's layered with this whole morality and this whole dilemma about which decisions to make between right and wrong. But it's also an adventure at the same time. So it's a combination of the two, which is what makes it excellent. If it was just one or the other, it may be lacking. But the fact that it's just both gives it just such a higher bar for me. And this one is one of those episodes.
Mm-hmm. If Eddington were a cartoon, he'd be called Eddington Bear. Remember that?
Oh gosh, yeah, I remember.
I do wish. I hope Ira and Robert remember the moment in the writers' room or wherever it came up where they're like, what should we have Bashir wear? Because they're probably thinking he's going to a conference. Maybe they just put him in regular plain clothes. But someone at some point said, let's put him in the old uniform. And everybody that heard that was like, oh, yeah, that's been great. You know what I mean? And I hope they remember that moment, whether it was somebody by themselves and then they mentioned it to him later, or whether it was all in the writer's room. That I think that's a really good detail. And it's one of those things that when you stumble on it or when you think of it, it's like it's gold, I like that.
Yeah, it is gold. And in the intro, I thought you were going to say something about Odo sliding out of bed, maybe sliding into the DMs, but I didn't hear the reference.
Yeah, he's sliding out of bed and into Kira's DMs because she was like, well, I don't know. There are a lot of people, blink, 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 that would be happy to take you out on a date, Odo, blink, blink, blink. He's like, I don't know. I'm grumble, grumble, grumble. It's kind of like the thing with like Worf and Dax, where he's being a fussy Freddy, and there's a perfect lady for him right there that, is at the very least his equal or more, and is just we think it's a perfect match. We're like, go Odo and Kira, go Dax and Worf. And he's sitting there just being all fussy, talking about slipping out of bed and being all slimy and stuff.
Yeah, I thought it was, and it's great too, because it's like he actually secretly got what he really wanted. I don't think he wanted to be a solid. I think he likes being the shapeshifter, and I didn't think he really, really wanted to be. He might have wanted to experience it, like what it was like to eat and drink and whatever it was, sleep, whatever it is that he didn't do differently. But I think that he lost his identity with it, and so he's happy now, even though he's all grumpy about it. He's happy now that he has that option.
Yeah, and something interesting there was that we weren't 100% sure, at least I wasn't, that
if he had that ability for
if it was just a temporary thing until the baby changeling died, or if somehow this baby changeling that could barely come together into a ball could give this gift, now obviously that seems a little far-fetched, but what do we know about what it means to be changeling? They can do anything. They can sense things. They can do things that we can't, so of course, sure, you can do whatever you want there. But I will say there was a hint in that episode, because I remember thinking, is that how he gets to be a changeling again? And I couldn't remember. But when he goes to turn into a hawk or whatever it was, he sheds his clothing, turned into a hawk, flies, he lands, he turns back into Odo with clothing on. So he wouldn't have been able to do that if it was just a temporary thing. You see what I'm saying?
I didn't pay attention to this.
So that was my hint when I saw that. Yeah, he's like leaving the infirmary or whatever, and he like kind of sheds his clothing and turned into a hawk and flies. Then when he comes back, he's got clothing again, telling us that he's now a changeling. At least that was the hint that I picked up on, but I still wasn't totally sure. It could just be an inconsistency.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either after watching that episode if it was just a one-time thing. Is this like, you just get to experience it once again and just feel what it's like to be a changeling one last time on my way to the afterlife? Or did he get his powers back? And now we know he got his powers back. So it's actually explained a little bit too. I was happy to know that.
Mm-hmm. So that's Odo's story, and there's gonna be a lot more with that coming up. Obviously it was just kind of like a little side thing. There were so many things. There's so many storylines.
Well, we didn't even talk about Zial.
Exactly.
There was the whole
30-year-old Zial all of a sudden.
Yeah, and who's finding her own maturity and growing into being an independent woman and kind of having to stand up to her dad, and that's another whole just a side story that was going on, and Dukat not being approving of Garrick, and the two of them just even commiserating. Right? I don't even know what the level of their relationship is at this point, but they have some kind of friendship. They have some kind of bond. He feels like he's able to promise her things, and I'll return and this and that, and so there's some kind of special bond there.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure what it is, but Dukat clearly doesn't like it, and they went into this in this episode. They show him. I mean, there was a moment where he was like kind of ruthless to her, right? He was like, "Yeah, okay, you stay, and die or something."
Yeah, you deal with it. You just sit here and rot.
Rot. Good luck with your life.
Yeah,
that's it. I'm done with you. It was just like he was cold-blooded in this episode a little bit. It looks like he's trying to do the right thing by her, because he is trying to save her from this onslaught of the Dominion. He knows what's coming, and he knows the attack is imminent. So he's kind of trying to be a good dad. So I wanted to give him. I kind of felt for him in that moment. Like, what would any dad do if they had a kid and their only kid is about to be in the middle of the biggest war in that sector? And you'd want to get them out into safety, right? Your first instinct would be to protect them. And so I actually thought he was doing the right dad move.
But maybe just for the wrong reasons. Yeah.
For the wrong reasons. Yeah, for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, there was actually something I thought that Dukat did very well as a father, where I was like, wow, there were some very reasonable moments from Dukat, I thought. We'll have to talk about on the other side of the break, because we're going to take the break in just less than a minute. But one thing I did notice was when you said cold-hearted or cold-blooded, it reminded me of when Kira says, something about Garrick. She's like, oh, well, he's a Cardassian. And Dukat says, he's a terrible, heartless, cold-blooded murderer. And she says, like I said, he's a Cardassian. Hey.
Yeah. Whatever. Yes, I wrote that down too. I thought that was a great interchange between the two of them, because they're able to talk openly about stuff with each other like that. And he actually threatens Kira, and he's like, yeah, there was a time when the Bajorans would take our threats seriously. And oh God.
And she said, she went like this. She went, not anymore. Snip. She just totally snipped.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can tell he's pissed about that. So he's like, I got to do something. Yeah. But yeah, there was some good interplay between Dukat and Kira in this episode, between Zial and Dukat. Just all these side moments. And I found myself really running the gambit of emotions, from like laughing to being really concerned to really tearing up sometimes. I was like, wow, this episode's got all of it.
And they squeezed it all into one episode. So we're going to take the quickest break ever, and we're going to come right back on the other side of this on the 7th Rule.